You never admit when you're wrong. Theryn Meyer, addendum. Hey, it's Prince of Queens, and there's this thing that used to always happen with me, with the person that was my oldest friend in the world that I knew since the fourth grade, who ended up being basically a sociopath. And we would get in arguments, and he would say, "You never admit when you're wrong." And he was really just wrong unanimously every time, I think. And he was the one that could never admit that he was wrong, and he never gave anyone apologies ever. Through dealing with him, I've learned to be pretty good at admitting fault, I like to believe. And I like to think I do it pretty quickly because I never want to be in one of those stupid situations with him where he obsessively, like, friends fight about something, and then you decide maybe that you did do something wrong, and then the other person takes that as a sign that you admitted fault to the entire conflict, when that's not necessarily true. It could be that they did more wrong than you, and you just admitted fault to one thing. And if that person is a scumbag, they will opportunistically take that and use it against you. So I had to deal with that with him, but I think I'm a better person for it, and I cut him out of my life. So now I'm in this situation where I said some kind of mean things about Theryn, and I wasn't really as articulate about it as I could be. See, after a few tweets with a YouTube personality named Red last night, I gave this a bit of thought, and I realized that in my video last night, I did something that I worded slightly poorly, and I admit a bit of fault around that regarding my opinion of Theryn Meyer and why I no longer am particularly interested in her. As Red pointed out fairly accurately, I sounded like I was condemning Theryn for changing her mind in numerous ways politically, and in particular about how she views non-binary identified people, which truthfully isn't necessarily a bad thing to do by itself, and I should clarify why I feel this way. Now, I'm writing this script before checking my social media because I want to make sure that the rest of my thoughts are genuine and not simply coming from peer pressure from anybody else that might be disapproving about yesterday's video, which of course you should watch before watching this one. Backstory. From what I can see, Theryn Meyer seems to have gone full SJW, as far as I can tell. And that really bugs a lot of people, and I think, for the most part, rightly so. But her specific stances on non-binary wouldn't necessarily bug me so much had she not been somebody that I know first believed in the intersectional non-binary gender deconstructionist stuff, then thought her way out of it, and then decided to at least pretend to believe in it again. Does she truly believe in it this time? Well, honestly, I doubt that she really even does, and I say that because I've never seen a particularly good explanation from her about why she decided to change her mind yet again. From what I saw in this video of hers, she basically just said, "Never mind, non-binary people are valid. I take back everything I said over the past 2 years because reasons." It's not the act of taking back something that you said that bothers me at all, because truthfully, that should be completely encouraged. However, when you've said a whole lot to the point where it has made you internet famous and gotten you speaking engagements with people like Steven Crowder and Jordan Peterson, if you take all of that stuff back, you'll need to be a bit more convincing to me than crying on camera while drinking malt liquor from a straw. Now granted, Theryn did make some good points in her video about the way in which people end up basically having no filter and being totally offensive as a result of the fact that political correctness had previously stifled discussions, and that this also leads to people speaking carelessly. That's a good point, and something that I think that I try to stick to fairly consistently on my channel, in that I don't throw around a whole bunch of insults casually. And if I do insult somebody, it's for a very particular reason, which I like to believe makes the insult a tad bit more potent and thus useful. Theryn then went on about her mistakes and how she engaged with her audience as a binary passing trans person, who thus enabled a certain portion of her audience to use her as an example of the, quote, one good tranny. And thus, many members of her audience likely became more transphobic towards less passing, less binary gender non-conforming people. Again, that doesn't really bother me because although I never told her this when we spoke a few times over the years, one of my first criticisms of both Theryn and Blair White was that they seemed to be forgetting that not every trans person has it as easy as they do when it comes to living while being trans, and their carefree attitude shouldn't be expected to be the norm. However, my problem now is simply that I don't think Theryn did even a remotely convincing job of making me believe she was sincere in her new feelings towards non-binary people, and I bet a lot of people feel the same way that I do. She basically just said, I changed my mind, non-binary people are valid, each and every one of you, which I know that she knows isn't true. No, not every person who claims to be non-binary is valid, Theryn. The drastic majority of them are more than probably just making stuff up to fit in with their peers because they want to be able to claim to be oppressed. You've been over this. More importantly, there is a hefty portion of people who have legitimate body dysphoria due to things like early childhood abuse that do things like cut themselves and identify as asexual because they have major issues and require serious therapy, which shouldn't be told, these people shouldn't be told, don't worry, you're perfectly valid, you're just non-binary. No, these people need help. There are some people out there that are legitimately gender ambiguous, and we could safely call some sort of in-between, and I have met several of them. But they are actually quite rare, and more importantly, ultimately biologically male or female. And thus, any gender validation that goes beyond admitting to their own genitals should be left up to their personal friends. Their coworkers should not have to validate their gender-neutral pronouns when everybody can guess what we'd see if we pulled down their pants, and their professors shouldn't have to validate them with gender-neutral pronouns either. Sorry. No. Sorry, not sorry. Just, they don't get to do that. They don't get to order people around. It's not right. If somebody legitimately confuses people and people can't tell if they are male or female, then they will be the first person to know, and they can easily just say, oh, call me whatever you like, I'm used to he or she. Or they can pick between preferred pronouns, he or she. Theryn is somebody that I'm certain knows all of this stuff because she made so much of her channel talking about these types of issues, and thus, it was really annoying to see her not only say, I take it all back, but to not give a solid reason about why, or even simply ask ContraPoints to elaborate about the reason why in front of an audience. That's my gripe, not the fact that she changed her mind by itself. Now, I can relate to why she would change her mind a bit because I did something similar at her age. I grew up on the West Coast surrounded by hyper-PC, leftist, hippie-type people. And then I moved to New York City for college, became completely non-PC after having a bunch of realizations about the real world. I told all the hippies in my hometown that they were stupid, and then decided that I felt bad about it, and ended up hanging out with a bunch of hippies often in San Francisco again, pretending that maybe I could like them. For a while I had some fun with them, and they were nice enough to me when I was nice enough to them. And then the SJW thing came along and they started coming up with all sorts of weird passive-aggressive language policing rules and never-ending guilt trips towards anybody with alleged privilege. Many of them were super rude about all of it, and those who weren't turned out to be completely spineless and too terrified to say anything to the obvious SJW bullies, even when it was clearly ruining their social spheres. Thus, I learned my lesson the second time in my early 30s, and I will never have to learn it again. PC leftists aren't the good people. Nobody is the good people besides maybe the individual good people that you meet, but they can always go bad too. PC leftists are spiteful yet phony about it, so it can seem like a good idea to hang out with them when everybody else is so completely unpleasant that you can form camaraderie in the mere act of being less unpleasant than everybody else. However, they are massive conformists, just like almost everybody, and they can and will turn completely unpleasant when it turns out that they think that they are in the majority and that they should be able to expect everybody to be like them, which is when they start protesting men's bathrooms for existing on college campuses, because reasons. But hey, Theryn is in her early to mid-20s or so if she wants to hang out with people like ContraPoints and act like they are smarter than everybody, including Jordan Peterson, and refuse to even take criticism, she can learn the same lesson that I did when the left grows strong and subsequently arrogant once again in another 10 or 12 years. Still, I am glad that she is open to being able to admit that she made some mistakes, even if she's bad at articulating what about her actions were mistakes. Sure, she basically tried to throw the baby out with the bathwater regarding her own ideas, but her motive for doing so, which was that she had been harmful to certain individuals, was valid. I wish more people would be willing to come forward and admit that they have made mistakes. But the sad fact is that I have to admit to myself that this has gotten rather hard, at least on YouTube, at least certainly in recent months, and maybe it always was, due to the way audiences deal with people who admit to guilt. Jeff Holiday, for example, was accused of all sorts of stuff a few months ago, from being a horrible bully to being a doxing liar that doxed basically everybody from Aiden Paladin to Sinatra Says. And lots of people were saying that stuff about him, including people like Tonka Saw, who clearly didn't actually know anything about it and was just opportunistically jumping on a drama bandwagon for his own personal attention whoring. Jeff, of course, being somebody that people generally think of as a pretty good guy and values his own integrity, eventually decided to apologize about one thing, which was lying about a server Kraut had devoted to a YouTuber named Coach Red Pill, which I can assume they made due to the reasons Sargon describes in his Thinkery video, How to Spot a Confidence Trickster, where it is clear that Coach Red Pill was actively trying to frame people. What did Jeff get for his troubles? What did Jeff get for admitting doing one little thing wrong? Well, basically, the people who were accusing him of stuff considered it a simple victory. Them right, Jeff wrong. And to this day, the people who came after Jeff so relentlessly go around telling everybody that basically Jeff admitted to being a terrible person and becoming everything he hates, like Tonkasaw did last week on Bering's secondary channel, Patrick. Even though Jeff did almost nothing they accused him of, and his accusers know that perfectly well, and honestly they knew it for a while and kept accusing him of stuff, now they keep saying Jeff messed up as if Jeff's one lie matters so much, but their plentiful false accusations somehow don't. It's a little weird. I've even forced people like Schmeckel to correct himself on air when Schmeckel kept saying on the cunt stream that Jeff was a doxer after everybody knew that he didn't dox anybody. I can show you guys this. Schmeckel was saying Jeff was a doxer. I posted in the chat, wait, how is he a doxer? And then when Schmeckel realized I was watching, he corrected himself. How pathetic is that? Schmeckel was knowingly lying about Jeff because he figured his audience wanted him to. Keep in mind that the only reason that the cunt stream has viewers and subscribers is largely due to people like Jeff showing up on their streams. Can you believe that Schmeckel would have the audacity to do that? Knowingly lie about the person that got you subscribers just because you figured people would want you to? There's a reason that I will never go on that stream again. All Jeff admitted to doing was lying about one thing, and he came clean because he felt legitimately bad about doing such a thing because he values his own integrity. So why is Jeff still treated like a horrible monster by some people? I don't know. I guess largely because in entertainment, people often don't care about apologies, and thus, I shouldn't put Theryn in that position. Jeff isn't a real person to many people, but rather a figment of their computer screen. They don't care that he's a real guy with a wife and a kid that makes videos discussing pseudoscience in between getting into random YouTube drama. What some, but certainly not all, members of the audience cared about was mainly, that it became popular with the certain type of crowd that a lot of people were watching all of a sudden to talk smack about Jeff. And this new crowd was entertaining to them, and that was all that they cared about, the entertainment. Will it just become popular to hate on Theryn now? Maybe. And some of that will probably be unfair. What I'm saying is I don't want that. I mean, to some people, it doesn't matter that Tonka Saw, for example, is a seeming pathological and easily provable liar who says wacky stuff all day, every day. But I guess some people don't care because Tonka never claimed to be a good guy or something. And also, Tonka never admitted to having lied even one time, because when you call him out on 6 lies, he makes up 6 more to cover for them, like he's good to go and nobody will ever notice. Good one, dude. Good one. Regardless, not everybody cares about thinking about this in as much depth as I do, because to most people this is just a form of television, and basically YouTube personalities might as well be reality actors. But Theryn, between you and I hope you believe me when I say that I thought of you as a real person before I ever talked to you. More so, I still think you're a real person. I don't have any vested interest in publicly humiliating you. At least, not anymore. And really, I just felt like making sure you knew what it was like to take what you dish a bit. Because with your attitude, I think you'll need that skill in life. However, I don't fault you for questioning your past actions. In fact, I commend that, on principle. That's all for this video, and now I'm gonna go check my comments from yesterday's video because I haven't. And I'm not super excited, but whatever.